2, 1. Let's go. Welcome to the Fiction Addiction Podcast, a podcast where we go one-on-one with fiction creators, such as authors, filmmakers, actors, songwriters, and more. Each episode, we get the inside scoop on our guests' creative process, the ups and downs of their industries, and our guests also give out tips and tricks that help them become successful. And now, let's jump into the episode with your host, Chris C.L. Lowry.
All right. Welcome back to the Fiction Addiction Podcast. My next guest is a devoted writer and lover of creatives in the creative industry. She has been writing since the crayon was placed in her hand, which has always given her the freedom to express herself and exercise her voice and imagination. She writes for personal passion and therapy, as well as to offer good content and rich stories for the world to enjoy and relate to. She is a fiction author and enjoys supporting other indie authors and artists. She is also the CEO of Oceanview Promotions, the CEO of Bleeding Ink Creatives, and a wedding officiant. So, ladies and gentlemen, Kai Williams. Kai, what is going on?
Nothing much. I appreciate you having me on the platform. I'm excited to talk about the book.
I appreciate you joining us. We're definitely excited to hear about it. So before we dive into the book, let's talk about this global pandemic that we're still in. How you're managing through it all.
To be honest, it's not easy. I'm used to being able to control my creative space, and with everyone home and things changing constantly, it is hard. It's a challenge. But I take it day by day. I do the best I can with what we have.
Now, how has it affected you as well as a business owner? Because you wear so many hats, and this industry that we're in does involve a lot of events, fairs, festivals, and things like that, which all have been canceled or postponed. So how has that affected you on the business side of things?
On the business side, it has not actually personally affected me. Most of my business is actually done from my computer. So
nice.
aside from offering my services as a wedding officiant, it has not taken a hit for me on that aspect. It's just the creative side of it. And in addition to that, I'm also now a full-time caretaker for my father. So for me, it's just not having the room to move around and do everything that I used to do the way I used to do it. So I just had to make some changes and, try to deal with the new norm. But as far as business being slower as a result of the pandemic, that hasn't happened. However, I have chosen to take the downtime to just continue researching, because I offer grant services as a part of the umbrella under Bleeding Ink. So for me, it's just given me actually more time to do research because I'm not constantly meeting with other people.
Right. So when did your writing journey begin? Obviously as a young child, but when did it actually start folding out?
I started sharing publicly maybe around 2011. Prior to that, I just always wrote and kept it to myself, journals, things like that. But I would say around mid-year 2011, I started sharing publicly, and then I would shy away because I wasn't comfortable with the social atmosphere when it came to sharing my words. So that took time. I started out mostly sharing prose and poetry on a social network. And over time, I gained the confidence to do what I really wanted to do, which is become a fiction author. So 2019, I would say almost 10 years, was it 8 years? It took me to get from the point of just sharing a few words to sharing full poems, prose. I actually published a chapbook of poetry that was just like a free write space for me. And that was kind of where I got the extra confidence to go for the fiction. And then I've just been doing it ever since. So I'm looking forward to the sequel to I Am My Sister's Keeper.
So when it comes to your poetry, obviously, even back when you were writing and keeping it to yourself, what was the
Mm-hmm.
inspiration that got you started?
Um, it's a personal space for me. I actually started writing very, very young. I was adopted, and writing was therapy for me. And the parents that adopted me, my mother was an English teacher.
Oh
So
wow.
she always encouraged me if I couldn't get out my feelings or express how I was feeling, she encouraged me to feel free to just write it out first and then think about it. And as a result of that, I just always turned to writing. It was just I don't really remember a time that I didn't. But
Really?
I would say that is what catapulted my desire to write. The sharing part came there a lot later in life.
So, what do you think was, I guess not even, probably not have been holding you back, but what do you think was the delay when it came to sharing your work?
I originally was too focused on the perception of the things or topics I might want to write on instead
Mm,
of instead of where I finally got to, which is there's something for everyone. So I cannot fixate on how am I going to please everyone. I just need to focus on my art, and my art will fall into the hands that are supposed to receive it. But it took time to get there. So it was a fear of not being able to put out something that in the beginning I thought I needed to do for everyone until I
mm.
refocused. And once I got that, I think it started to become a little easier for me.
So what motivates you to write now?
It's like kryptonite. I mean, that's probably the best word for it. It is. The description that you read in the beginning that you said, thank you very much for that. It's just a passion. It is not that deep when it comes to, it is a part of who I am. I'm always writing. And now in today's world, it's easy because we have our phones, we can be out and we actually don't have to forget what we just thought about. We can jot it down and keep going. So for me, it's just what I do. It's definitely my kryptonite.
Now, when you begin writing,
Hmm.
did you envision a career as an author and obviously everything else around it that you're also doing? Or when did that become a reality for you?
With regard to business, in my past, I've been an educator and a caseworker in the human services industry. I worked with a lot of youth over the years, and in doing that, I found an affinity for program development and grant research, and as a result,
Mm,
writing. I've done it for other entities, and I've done it for myself in the past. And it just, a couple of years ago, I just decided that that's something that I want to be able to do for other people while it is work. The joy in the grants that you are able to receive for businesses is you can't compare that because you're helping somebody else build further dreams. So to me, it was just a no-brainer. It was something that I enjoyed doing, so I decided that I should be able to offer that to other people.
mm. So what is your current publishing status? Are you independent? Are
Yes.
you under a small publishing company? Okay, you're independent.
No.
What was
Hmm.
what played into that choice? Because obviously we have so many avenues, so many routes to take when it comes to being an author. What made you want to remain independent?
Once I realized that I was approaching the art wrong, meaning I changed my focus on just going inward with my creativity. Once I got to that point and just started to produce what I was comfortable with, I realized that I didn't want to deal with what goes along with a publishing house. I'll say that.
Right.
The business side of it and the political side of it, I know wasn't something that my personality was built for. And independently, you can still hire editors and things of that nature to make sure that your product is high quality. It's just you don't have the marketing and the money up front backing you. So it's a
Right.
choice, really. It is. It is a choice. It doesn't mean that you don't want your work to be as polished. You just put a little bit more fight into it because you've got to get it to that next level without the extra help behind you. But nowadays, there are tons of circles, there's tons of support, and there are plenty of very, very, very successful independent authors. So I just strive to get to the next level.
Give me one tip that you would give an aspiring author right now that wants to take the independent route.
Mm. Don't be afraid to just go for it. I think fear stops us from doing a lot of things. And I know it's easier said than done. It took me from 2011 to 2019 to produce a work of fiction. So I get it. However, it stifles you. So I would say just go for it. The only thing you can do from the first project to the next project is learn. That's the only thing you can do. There's nothing wrong with that. The idea is to constantly improve. So why not put that towards your creative workspace? It's the same thing.
True. So your poetry, do you also perform it as well?
I love spoken word. However, I do not want to be the one up there. I would write a
Really?
piece and have other people read it. I guess one of the questions you asked me, backtrack, I probably should have added when you said what pushes me, or it was either pushed when I was talking about my passion. That's what it was. I would be a ghostwriter if I could, meaning
Oh.
there's a lot of genre. There's a lot of things that I would probably delve into if you could just have no idea it was me at all. So you never
And why
know,
is
but
that?
no, but because I'm not the one that wants to be out there, but I don't mind writing the juice. It's like a screenplay. I would love to transition at some point and learn the art form of actually bringing a novel to the screen. However, I don't want to be in the picture. I don't want to be an actor in it, but I want to write all the stuff I write. I want to write all the stuff that goes along with it. So yeah, that's it. All that to say, I love spoken word. I have performed maybe twice, and it was on an internet platform. I want to say it was blackplanet.com. It's been years, but I did it twice. Haven't done it any time in the present. Don't plan to.
So, who would you say are some of the writers that are your favorites and that motivate you and inspire you?
Well, I will say one of my favorite writers, I guess I'll just call her a creative because she does so much, is Victoria Rao. She is an actress, probably most known to people for her role on The Young and the Restless for years.
Right.
But she's actually a foster child growing up. So as a young child, I attached to her story. So she is probably, having never met her, one of the people that motivated me or that I look up to when it comes to writing, because she does it all. The next jump from Victoria Rao would have to be Sister Soldier, because The Coldest Winter Ever was really what lit a fire inside for me to want to be able to be that powerful of a writer. I just love her delivery. And as far as independent authors, just regular, to me, everyday people that have grown in their craft and have encouraged me to follow my passion, I was saying Nicole Banks. She's an independent author. She's written several novels, anthologies, but mainly just her encouragement through the years, and seeing her grow and seeing that it can be done was one of the subliminal individuals that kind of helped push me along. I also mentioned Brittany Miller. She is not necessarily a fiction author. However, she is an amazing writer. And the way that she tells her story and uses that to motivate and encourage others simply by the way she moves, not forcing it on others, is something that I was attracted to. That's why I reached out and tried to build a relationship and wanted to work with her, because that energy is also something that encouraged me to keep writing. And outside of that, I would have to say, as far as individuals that write nonfiction, when I was younger, I was really into reading biographies and autobiographies, and then moving more towards historical works. I don't have a person. I would just say that I do like world history, because I love to read up on different accounts. Because no matter whether it is actually considered to be fiction or nonfiction, there is always an art form to the writing. And there is always a little to be desired, whether or not everything is completely accurate. So I just enjoy that.
Now break down your publishing journey for me from the moment you first began, because obviously a lot of us have. We went through ups and downs. You mentioned a lot in this interview, research, which I think is one of the most important things you can do when stepping into this industry. So break down your publishing journey from beginning to now.
For me, it wasn't that much of a hurdle, because like I said, and that's why I didn't name a lot of big name authors. And there's also a poet that I wanted to say. Her name is Manissa Martin. She has a raw, real feel to all of her writings, but her motivation and encouragement over the years also for me to continue pushing forward to share is something that motivated me. And in that, I bring that up to say, I don't forget any of the people along the way, no matter how small, because when I talked to them individually through the years, they were open to share their journey. So in that, I was able to try a couple outlets and see if it worked. There's a few writing outlets publishing outlets that you can go to, and you can upload your own work, and you can go through the process of trying to figure out how to do it for yourself, or you can use their tools. They may have individuals that you can pay for services. So I basically kind of took a list of what they said worked for them and what didn't work. And then I tried a couple, and that was totally it for me. So I was blessed to have a few people that I trusted enough to ask, and they were blessings by telling me their truth, because I didn't have to go over some of the hurdles they did. Now there's more to learn, and I'm doing my own research now as far as figuring out which avenue I want to go into next. However, I would have to say I was just blessed to have something to work with up front. And
Right.
asking questions is really important. I guess that's the lesson there, is asking. Don't be afraid to ask, because you never know who may have answers for you, or they may point you in the right direction.
Mm. Now, obviously, with being an indie author, you mentioned earlier having to do a lot of the steps yourself, rather than being with a traditional publishing company who do the steps for you. You know what I mean? Point you in the right directions that way. So,
Mm-hmm.
being an editor, how was that process like? Because looking for an editor from an author's perspective is so many different things you're looking for. But from an editor perspective, which you have, I wonder how is it harder? Is it more difficult, or is it easier to find an editor to work with when it comes to your work?
No, it's not hard to find one. It's making sure that you find one that you're comfortable with their skill set and your story still being told.
Mm.
With editing, I would just say it is a blessing, especially if you have someone else to edit for you. I only pre-edit my work, so I would still give my work to someone else qualified to read it, because it's hard to differentiate between the skill of editing and your art, if that makes sense.
Right, absolutely.
So somebody else may not have a problem with it at all. They may just flow with it, and it is what it is. But for me, I needed to step outside the box and let somebody else step in it, and then we go from there. I'm actually looking for a new editor at this point. So once I get that solidified, I'll be moving forward with final edits on my sequel.
And what was the process like finding your cover designer?
Um, I know this is probably going to sound cliche, but that was a blessing also. I actually met my cover designer, and he honestly is a photographer. This was his first book cover. I met him about 6 years ago in the writing world. And at the time, we were both sharing poetry publicly. And I just our relationship continued to grow over time. And then he started to grow his businesses. He became a photographer. And I was actually working for a liquor company, and I was hiring models and doing other things a couple years ago that required me needing a personal photographer. So in doing that, when I started my writing, I decided that I wanted to know my cover model. So I chose her. So my cover model and my photographer both work together. He has a modeling agency now, since all of this. So I knew his work already. So again, that was a blessing. I had time to know him as a professional. I understood his work ethic. I saw literally his business grow over the years, and it was a no-brainer.
Mm.
And the young lady was, like I said, I met through him. She was one of his models.
Nice. That's amazing to have that
Mm-hmm.
connection, and to always have that connection now with their books. That's crazy.
Well, it just it makes it all come back to help you understand that you never know who or what connection you'll have from an individual. You don't know
Right.
who a person is. You cannot judge a book by its cover. We didn't see any of this coming 6 years ago, but here we are.
That's crazy. Now, outside of being an author, you wear a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of other hats, especially when it comes to business. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. So you are the CEO of Oceanview Promotions, which is a literary and creative artist promotion platform that gives creators a safe place to network and support one another. What inspires you to create that company?
Because I wanted it for myself. I wanted to try to build, eventually my goal would be to have a creative haven for individuals to express their written art form or what have you, and not feel the pressure. Like I said, how I started thinking incorrectly and had to grow to the part of understanding my art is for someone and may not be for everyone. So I wanted to provide that, especially when it came to books and writing for other authors. That was it. That's all I wanted from it. I wanted to be able to provide that space for them to get recognized, be noticed, and share with each other.
All right. So how has it been? How has the network been so far since you started it?
I just started focusing on that maybe within the last couple of months, and
Okay.
I would say it's going great. I did a Leo season indie author support campaign in which I committed to buying through the company 7 new books that I did not already have, preferably from new indie authors that I had not already been connected with. So I put a post out there, and I was excited to see people actually chime in and give me names and start to share. So just from doing that, it made me realize that some people are actually interested, and this is a way for us to grow. I never would have. Of the 7 books, I knew one author, and that's because Nicole Banks just released a new book. And I actually ended up doing 10 because there was one more author that I just was like, I want her book, but it was a series, and I'm a sucker for a series.
Really?
So I bought her. I wanted to buy her series, and she surprised me, and she offered it to me as a book exchange. So I sent her a copy of mine instead, and she sent hers. So it's been great. It has been a short time, but I'm already interacting with new authors that I wasn't connected with, which I am enjoying.
Well, is there any meaning behind the name Oceanview?
Yes, I live in South Florida, and my favorite place to be is on the beach.
Nice.
Yes. If you take a look at Oceanview Promotions page and the Bleeding Ink Creatives page, it's Bleeding Ink _creatives. You'll see it's all types of ocean theme.
Now, speaking of Bleeding Ink Creatives, you are the CEO of that company as well, where you provide clients literary services such as editing, grant writing, which you mentioned earlier, and notary services.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start providing those services?
I started providing those services years ago, independently. After I worked for other entities, I did it independently. Let's say about 2013 until 2000 and almost 15, and then I just formed Bleeding Ink's company last April. So we've been around for just over a year. Just over a year, but I have experience in grant writing since 2006.
Okay.
For the record, I've done it for multiple entities. I've written grants for multiple entities. I've even been able to secure other types of funding for small businesses.
Really?
Yes. So I used to write grants for Zoo Atlanta, and I also managed their education programs in which I would sell programs in mass production to school systems. So that's where I got all of my developmental skills when it came to program development, between that and being a teacher.
Wow.
Yes. And now I have a college graduate, so I'm focusing on all the things I want to do.
Right. Absolutely. Now, where do people start when it comes to actually looking for grants? Is that something your service, is that provided with your service, or do they have to do it on their own and come to you to write it?
No, there's two types of clients. So you can have a client that is coming in your door and says, "Hi, I'm looking for someone to write the grant, and I have this particular grant I want to write for." That means they've done their own research. Or you have a client that comes to you and says, these are the programs that my business or entity offers. I'm looking for funding to support XYZ. Can you help me find the grants, which is research, and write the grant? Now, in addition to finding, which is research, and writing, there's also compliance. So it depends on what a client needs, because it's also very important to comply with your grant, because if you don't, then you run the risk of funds not being given to you, and if they've already been given, you having to return them. So it's definitely important to make sure that whomever you're working with is at least experienced.
Now, outside of those ventures, you're also a wedding officiant. How did that happen?
That's the newest baby. Okay, so I have not actually officiated a ceremony. However, during the pandemic, that was the latest thing that I added to the Bleeding Ink umbrella, because I've always wanted to. And I was sitting down thinking of, what could I do? And I had a girlfriend that was actually planning to get married, and the destination wedding had to be postponed because of the pandemic. And I saw all these beautiful couples online and on TV getting married anyway at home. And I thought, what if I could be a part of helping to make that happen? So I did it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was
like
just something extra.
It's like your whole
I've always
thing.
wanted to do it.
Really?
I've always wanted to do it. And then I said, well, wow. I was so touched by it. People improvising and still making the best of it. I was like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? So when this is all over, then I would love to actually go and officiate my first ceremony.
Nice. It's like everything you do is like helping other people.
That's a part of Inception. I've always been that way. Yeah. I mean, it's a blessing to be able to know that it's okay to help somebody else.
Right.
I don't mind. I actually find more joy in that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I do not like to be the center of attention. I prefer to work behind the scenes, help other people, and let that be it.
Now, your book is titled I Am My Sister's Keeper.
Yes.
Break that story down to us.
It is a story of 4 sisters. 2 are biological, and the other 2 are girlfriends in life. And the main premise of the book is to remind you to pay attention, honestly, to those individuals that end up actually being there for you in life, no matter whether it's good, the bad, ugly, indifferent, those same people. If you look around, you'll notice there's only a few people that are actually still right there. So that was the premise for the title.
Now, what was the inspiration behind the story?
I actually grew up an only child, and I had a couple sister friends, but I never had my own sister. So part of me writing the story was I implemented that there was both in the picture to show that love is a choice. That was my underlying message, is love is a choice, because that's how I felt when I was raised, because I was adopted, I was chosen. So since I didn't have a sister, that's kind of the way that my writing goes. I always like to write in mind that love's a choice. So I may have some girlfriends that aren't my blood sisters, but they're just as much a sister to me as my actual one would have been.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. That was author Kai Williams. Kai's book, which is titled I Am My Sister's Keeper, is available on Amazon and anywhere books are sold. You can also find it on her website, which is oceanviewpromotions.com. You can follow Kai at Kai_author on Instagram, and also check out her business pages, which are Bleeding Ink _creatives and at Oceanview Promotions on Instagram. Make sure you guys hit her up. Make sure you guys check out the book, network with her, follow her page, and don't forget to tune in every week for a new episode of the Fiction Addiction Podcast.
Thank you for joining us on the Fiction Addiction Podcast. Make sure you visit fictionaddictionpodcast.com for links on everything we talked about today, as well as awesome resources, additional tips, and fiction addiction merchandise.